So now, ladies and gentlemen, live and in colour, it's Mr. Wayne Lovejuice.
The other day our producer Louis had a chat with an interesting chappie who said that the YouTube algorithms really aren't that happy. If a channel only broadcasts once a week, so we decided we can text ya whenever we've got a piece of news in our new book on the track extra. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we've got two old friends come to visit us in the studio today. It's Cara and it's Ralph the Monster. What are you here to do today, Cara and Ralph the Monster?
So Ralph, what's coming up? Book review.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as everybody who's a regular viewer of On the Track Extra will know, whenever Richard Freeman, who's a dear and sweet friend of mine, as well as being one of the country's leading cryptozoologists, in fact one of the world's leading cryptozoologists, whenever he comes to visit me, like he is at the moment, he goes up into my library and he grabs some books almost at random, so he and I can do book reviews for them. So, Richard, what's the first one you have for us today?
It's Peter Costello's In Search of Lake Monsters.
Fantastic book. The only problem with it is that if you've got the paperback, you need the hardback as well because there's some extra stuff in that. But there's stuff in the paperback that's not in the hardback, so ideally you need both of them. And I believe it's the same with Giant and Colin Board's Alien Animals. But tell us about that book, Rich.
Well, it's an overview of lake monsters, although there is a chapter on sea serpents as well. And it starts with the Loch Ness Monster, then it goes on to other Scottish lake monsters, then it looks at lake monsters in Ireland, the many Irish lakes, and then it goes international with the United States, Canada, Eastern Asia, Western Asia, South America, and even with the Waitariki and the Bunyip in New Zealand and Australia. So it's very it was written in 1974. It's very comprehensive, very well written, wonderfully researched, got a lot of stuff in that you'll not find elsewhere. But where it stumbles is his conclusion. He tries to explain everything with lake monsters and sea serpents being huge, long-necked eels, and that was a
Seals.
I'll take that back again. But where it stumbles is the conclusion. He tries to explain lake monsters and sea serpents as huge, long-necked seals, and this was a theory first touted in Victorian times by Oudemans in his book The Great Sea Serpent, but it just doesn't work. Seals and sea lions are air-breathing mammals. They need to come to the surface to breathe. So if you're looking at any given body of water any given body of water that's supposed to have lake monsters in it, it's going to have a lot of people watching it most of the year round. These animals would be seen when they breach to take a breath. The other big stumbling point is that seals and sea lions have to haul themselves up onto land to give birth. They're air-breathing mammals that give birth on dry land. So if there were giant long-necked seals or sea lions, they'd have been discovered hundreds of years ago. So whatever lake and sea monsters are, they're not long-necked seals. It's liable that there are lots of different creatures involved in this, but I don't think any of them are long-necked seals or sea lions. Other than that last chapter and his conclusions, it's a great book and a real good read, particularly the stuff about the Malayan Peninsula and the stuff from the 1950s, the creatures they called nagas that were seen in lakes in Malaysia, which was absolutely fascinating. Overall, a fantastic book, just the last chapter spoils it a bit.
That was the first cryptozoology book that I actually owned. It wasn't the first I read, it was the first that I actually owned. And I was blown away by it. But like you, I found the idea of trying to shoehorn them all these creatures from around the world, into being one single species of long-necked seal, I found it very difficult, very problematical. Leaving aside the idea of long-necked seals for the moment, I find it very problematical that there is an unknown species of large aquatic mammal that lives in South America, New Zealand, Australia, across Asia, across the northern hemisphere to Scotland, and that's not even counting the ones in the New World, in Canada and Mexico. I find the idea that they're all one single species very difficult to swallow. It's, again, it's trying to shoehorn a concept in. And there is, I think, the proper word for this when people try to use the evidence to suit their own theory. But I truly don't think that his conclusions can be right. We had him at the Weird Weekend some years ago, and he was a really, really nice chap, and I was very, very pleased to meet him after all these years. But what I didn't tell him is that I thought the conclusions in his book were wrong. Anything else, Rick?
Heuvelmans himself is guilty of this in the wake of the sea serpents. He's obsessed with most sea serpents being marine mammals, and he will twist things around to suit his theories. And up until the 1990s he was doing this with the Stinson Beach sea serpent that was seen by the Crew brothers and other people, which is transparently reptilian. It had scales and fins and things, and this dragon-like head, and he was trying to say that it was a marine mammal, and these features were what the witnesses thought they saw, because it's what they think a sea serpent should look like, and that's the wrong way to go about it. It's obvious that some sea serpents are reptilian rather than mammalian.
It's a thing which, it's a paradigm in cryptozoology which I find quite disturbing. The idea that you can twist the evidence to suit your particular theory. Whereas I think that, as the CFZ do, we take the evidence and then twist the theory to fit in with the evidence. Which I think is not just the only way to do it, but it's the proper way to do it. So, ladies and gentlemen, here we are at the end of another episode. I hope you enjoyed that book review. It was the first of 3 book reviews that we're recording. So I can now tell you we're going to be back on Saturday. And what's on Saturday's show? Well, we've got Richard talking about the forthcoming expedition to Tajikistan, which hopefully will be happening 2 days before the show is broadcast. However, at the time of recording this, we've been told that Richard's visa application for Tajikistan has been denied. and so we're going to have to hope and pray that he manages to get a new application in on time on Monday. However, even if he doesn't manage to get it in and he has to cancel his trip to Tajikistan, the rest of the team will still be going. And I hope to hear what they'll be doing when they come back. And sad and poignant though it will be, Richard's description of what the team hope to achieve, even if he's not ending up being part of that team, is still valid. So that's going to be what's happening next Saturday. And on the Wednesday after that, see, I'm really doing well, because on the Wednesday after that we have Dr. Darren Naish, who is also part of the team going to Tajikistan, talking about what he hopes the expedition will achieve. So, it only remains for me to say thank you to Richard Freeman, who's, I don't even think Richard counts as a guest, you know, I've known him all these years and he's more like a brother than a friend. I love the boy dearly. But thank you to Richard for coming on the show. And are you ready, Mr. McCrinnan? Because if you're ready, Mr. McCrinnan, on Saturday, when I'm going to be there presenting the show and you're going to be there watching the show, I'll be seeing you.